softly by my side, but I only hear the emptiness of space, and a siren song which calls to me from a burning white hot star, promising oblivion and peace. And the stars still dance the spiral dance, and the planets circle far, but the ship who sang will sing no more.
Hello, gentle listeners. This is another episode of Book Club with
Between the Covers.
Yes, Between the Covers. Thank you, Aaron. I forgot. This is Between the Covers with It's our book club. This week we are going to be discussing The Ship Who Sang. But first, we're going to spend a little bit of a get to know you with our nephew, Kris. He's 16. He lives in Illinois. And he is an artist.
And rumor has it he's a great nephew.
Yes, he's a great nephew.
A great one, yeah. Legend precedes him, yes, for sure.
Yes.
But it's great to have you on, Kris. To make up for a little lost time here. I saw you, last time I saw you, you were too young to hold a conversation with. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I don't think you remember.
I didn't know it was that long since I've seen you guys.
Yeah, well, we don't travel a lot.
Right. We're sort of landlocked too. But I've been an admirer of your artwork for a while. Mm-hmm. Your grandma shared some of that with us, and we've seen it on Facebook and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I asked you to share a couple examples of your artwork, and so I'm going to go ahead and put that up on the screen here real quick. Let's see. Yeah.
And one of the things, the way we do the podcast, in case you're not aware, Philip will add stuff to it when he releases it for public consumption.
Yeah.
So audio, visuals, that kind of thing.
Right. Right. I'll do like a TikTok video or something to promote it or whatever. But here we got one example that you sent us. It looks like a Victorian age hats.
It was one of my characters that I made for a story, but I never ended up using it yet.
Is that steampunk inspired or more Victorian?
No, it's more of just Victorian. Yeah, the story takes place in the 1890s.
Okay. So are you writing a short story to go with it, or a story like a storyboard? Would it be more of a illustrated novel? Illustrated story?
I haven't really gotten far with it, but it was supposed to be about a Victorian murder mystery type thing, and she was the female detective, I didn't get very far into it.
Packs of
So theoretically, you should go into a graphic novel series with her as your female protagonist. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Ready to bust some caps in somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I love the back. I mean, look at the contrast, the background, the wallpaper in the back and everything. That's very consistent. That's cool. That's a really little cool effect. Yeah. And I like the way that you kind of reuse different colors in it and stuff. But how did you get?
The gun was really hard to draw.
Did you use
I can imagine.
Like an image or something like that, or memory, or?
Yeah, I just used a reference picture.
Okay. I remember, you know what? It reminds me of that opening of Policewoman with Angie Dickinson back in
Oh, yeah.
when she's standing there holding the gun. That's how it is during the credits in the opening. Yeah. That's cool, though. I like
This
that.
is something that only old people would remember, and quite frankly, your uncle and I, we're too young for Policewoman, too.
Just barely.
Just barely,
Just barely.
but yeah.
Years, yeah.
That's a bit, that's even an age reference for us. But if you ask your grandmother about it, she'll be like, oh, yeah, Angie Dickinson.
Yeah, she'll know all about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at another one here.
Mm-hmm. Now, I like this one particularly because as a small child, my nickname was Mittens because I kept losing them.
Oh.
So,
Oh,
even
no.
even to the point where in 2017 I went on vacation with my cousins and their families, and one of them had told his kids to call me Mittens, and I answered to it.
That's your own fault then to keep that going.
Yeah,
yeah.
it is.
That was your chance to stamp it out right there.
Yeah. So now every once in a while I'll get a little something saying, "Hey, Aunt Mittens, what's up?"
For me, Mittens brings to mind Bernie Sanders now.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
All right.
This one. This one was like an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where this guy is trying to sell mints for cats. For some reason, so they're quieter. He thinks that'll make the cats
that was hilarious.
quieter.
Yeah.
Our cats really
they don't walk very well at all with mittens.
No, they do not.
So this is Charlie then.
Yeah, it's Charlie Day.
Oh, I love that guy. I love that guy.
Yeah.
He reminds me of my primary care physician, my PCP.
Your angel dust.
Actually, Phillips, our primary care doctor, is actually, he definitely isn't a Charlie Day type. He's very smart.
Very confident.
But he's also 5'6" and weighs about 125 pounds.
Right.
So, yeah.
He kind of resembles him a little bit.
Yeah, there's a resemblance.
Let's see. We got another one here.
Okay.
What's this one all about, Kris?
Buffer and succotash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't. Oh. That one is one of my characters, but also one of the characters from Looney Tunes. Because I guess I like drawing in that art style, so I decided to make my own little character to put in there.
So Sylvester maybe and
his Hollywood cousin.
Yeah, he has like a 80s theme, and I didn't really make much more because it's just fun, and I like drawing in the cartoon art style, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I could spend hours going through some of the, in Facebook. I've gone through a lot of your artwork. I really like it. Of course, your grandmother's a very good artist.
Yeah.
Amanda is a good artist. My mother, your great grandmother, was a really good artist.
Yeah, your mother, your Uncle Kenny, and your grandma all sold art professionally.
Taught art.
And taught.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope I can too.
Mary taught art. I don't think Kenny and Mom did.
No.
Mm-mm.
Saying, Kris?
Yeah. I'm sorry. What'd you say, Kris?
What? I was just saying that I hope I can sell art someday, like as a job.
I don't see why not.
Yeah. I think you got a good future.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for letting us share that.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
It is really
yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's dive into
The Ship Who Sang by Anne McCaffrey.
Right.
Okay.
And at least this is your.
This is my book. It's one of my favorites. I actually found this book when I was about your age, Kris. I don't know if I was 15 or 16. And I just love the premise of it. You take people that are born unfortunate, severe disabilities, physically speaking, and what you do is, now one of the things that Anne McCaffrey didn't like was the science fiction stories where they removed the brain from the body. She didn't like that. It creeped her out. So what she decided to create was a world where the body stayed with the person but was altered. So what they did was they, this futuristic society would retard the growth of the human body when a person was born with a deformity that could not be fixed by science. And they would place them in a shell, a metal shell, a titanium shell with life support. And that person whose brain was perfectly fine would grow up as a shell person, and they would never know any other life. So they would be adjusted to it from the very beginning. Also, they used psychological therapy, medications to help them to adjust and to stay adjusted. Eventually, they would grow up, and as they learned over the course of their lives, they would show abilities, and those abilities would decide where they should be placed as far as a shell person. And a shell person could be a ship, they could be a city, they could be a space station. There are even some that are that run worlds. So, it's a whole society where these shell people are basically the bosses, the city bosses, and the ships and the captains. In this particular case, the ship who sang Helva has been encapsulated, and she is in a ship. And that ship its purpose is to deliver things. And she has been brought on, by medical. He laughs whenever I hiccup. Why does he laugh when I hiccup?
It's cute.
Okay. Yeah. She has been contracted by medical for Central Worlds. She was born with a severe physical deformity. Her brain and her body were not actually connected. Science, as it was at the time, could not fix that. So her parents chose to put her in the Brawn program to give her a chance at a useful life. I mean, in the brain program. And that's
the other option was euthanasia, right?
Right.
That's right.
Pretty much, yeah.
So that's really good background.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the first few pages of The Ship Who Sang, which is the first chapter, it establishes what you're talking about.
Right, how she grows up, how she's conditioned to be general. Great. And Philip would like me to do a little background on Anne McCaffrey.
Hi, Terri.
Hey, am I on?
Yep.
Hi,
Terri.
I've been in your green room for a long time. And Kris was having trouble with her connection.
And Kris is connected now.
All right.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So Terry's read the book also. All of us have read the book now. We're all in.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about the author?
Okay.
Yeah.
Anne McCaffrey.
Anne McCaffrey, right.
Anne Inez McCaffrey, born 1926, passed away in 2011. Gone but not forgotten. She's one of my all-time favorite authors. There's a number of Ship Who books, including The City Who Fought, The Ship Who Searched, and others. There are also these books called the Dinosaur Planet books, which are excellent. The Dragon Riders of Pern is her most famous series. And there's also books about Sassenach and Freedom Planet. So she's got a lot of books out there. Plus, she has also done historical fiction, which you might enjoy, Terry, because I know you like historical fiction, right? Or am I mixing you up with someone else?
Oh, yeah, historical fiction. Some of it I like. I don't like those ones with Fabio on the cover.
Oh, yeah, no. These are more, these are way more, I'm going to say Catholic, but also romantic.
I like historical, almost like biographies.
Oh, like, okay. So maybe not.
You prefer nonfiction?
I don't know. I know she has done some nonfiction. Well, yeah. Well, I don't think Terry's talking about Terry Turtle. No. So,
like the historical romances, I liked them a lot. Like probably in my early teen or late teens, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
Romantic, and romance was still more of a fantasy than reality.
Amen.
And then
don't listen, Kris. Don't listen. Don't listen to our old lady vitriol.
Once you find out what a ho-hum thing it really is, then
leave him some hope. Okay. So, Anne McCaffrey, she's got a long and storied career. In a 2004 interview, she talked about the origin of the brain ship, in which a woman is searching for her husband's brain, which was used for the autopilot of an ore ship, and she wanted to find it to give him surcease, to give him mercy, if you will, for those today. If you look at like the, I'm sure most of us understand what giving them mercy means. It's a big part of the zombie universe. So she thought that if severely able people were given a chance to become starships. So that's how The Ship Who Sang was born. It is her first book among the series. It is not her first book. Okay. So Helva has inspired at least 2 songs, Free Fall and Other Delights by Celia Eng and Helva's Song by Anne Prather.
And I think Aaron and I were talking about that. I think we both prefer to Cecilia Eng.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the song that's playing at the outset of this episode.
Yeah. The Anne Prather one was a bit, the singing is a bit sharp for my taste.
Yeah, it's a little, it's kind of like Joni Mitchell, except if you take Joni Mitchell, take it to 11.
Yeah.
If you squeezed her somewhere and made her go into a very high register and stay there.
Okay,
you know, the
plugging it in might have been the trick.
For cats. Yeah. I want to get one of those. I'm surprised you guys don't own one already, Aaron. One of those exercise wheels for cats. It's like this giant hamster wheel, but it's for cats.
Oh. That sounds like
they've got the whole house to run through. I don't think they need a wheel.
Well, it's okay. So
we can't get our older one to run. So.
Here's a quote by Ms. McCaffrey from SFF World, 2004 interview, 7 years before her departure from this plane. She goes, you want me to read it, or you want to read it?
I already read it.
I thought you paraphrased it.
No, I read it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I can piece all that together.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just start talking about the chapters. There's 6 chapters, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were all written independently. They were released as short stories. They were published in science fiction magazines.
Yeah,
from
except the last one was written specifically for the book.
Right, to
Right.
kind of tie it all together.
Right. So each chapter really is
A standalone.
yeah.
And that's why it's not, in the book, they're not listed as chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. They're listed by their title.
Yeah.
Right.
And the first short story is The Ship Who Sang, 1961.
Right. And
Boy, that's first grade.
Mm-hmm.
for you.
Yeah.
That's not even first grade for me. But I mean, I can't say that to very many people, Terry. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but that's
I'm just grateful I'm not the oldest person on the podcast for once.
we had that was kind of around the time, according to our weekly readers, that Sputnik and Telstar were launched up there.
Right around there.
My weekly reader.
Yeah.
And that was back when
My weekly.
I don't know if Kris, I don't know if your grandmother's told you stories about it, but or even possibly your dad. But when we were growing up in elementary school, they told us that if there was a nuclear war, we should hide under our desks.
Yeah, I think I heard that.
Yeah.
Well, was 61, that's after Sputnik, right?
Yeah, I think Sputnik was first, and then maybe like a year later, I think I was in kindergarten or first grade when Telstar was on the cover of our weekly reader.
And that got people's minds churning, I guess, about science
fiction.
fiction.
Sputnik, they used Sputnik to inform, to get funding for the American space program, because we couldn't let the Russians beat us.
It was like the first shot in the space
They
race.
made it to space.
Mm-hmm.
We made it to the moon.
It was like the equivalent of Pong to video games.
Right.
Sputnik experiment. They got into the atmosphere, and they were able to send a signal back down to Earth. It was basically just like I'm sure this is a very unscientific explanation for what it was, but it was very basic, very
kind of a ping.
It was a Russian thing, and it was like the first shot of the space race. But this type of thing was on the forefront of people's minds. It was like science fiction experienced a huge popularity boom in the 60s. It seems to me. I mean, not having lived through it,
because it became real. People who weren't just, if it
speculate.
So really, if you think about it, if it wasn't for Sputnik, we wouldn't have Star Trek.
Well, Kris, does that take you back far enough?
So well before you were born.
Yeah, right.
So these scout ships, or the brain ships, basically Helva's the brain, and most of the time she has somebody that partners with her called a brawn.
Right.
Yeah.
And the first one was Jenin.
Right. Didn't she? Do you got some notes, Aaron? Are you looking at some notes?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just basically sketched a little bit about each short story so I wouldn't get them mixed up. But yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we just go around the room for each chapter. That way, everybody gets their chance to give their notes and without any interruption, or anything like that.
I didn't write
What's that, Kris?
I didn't write anything.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have anything
that's
to
no
add,
problem.
Yeah.
Neither did I. I never take notes because Philip and Aaron take plenty of them.
Some publish those things and actually make some money off of this.
Absolutely.
Like going on someone else's podcast and promoting it.
Yeah, right.
But wasn't it like Helva kind of like it's almost like she had an open house where all these brawns came through, all these people came
exactly.
And she would sing, and that's how she kind of got.
Well, that comes later.
Yeah.
Does anyone remember why she chose Jenin?
Because he faced her. He faced where her brain was when he spoke to her.
He faced her column. No matter where he was, even though he could hear her inside, outside, other rooms, he would always face her column when he spoke to her.
Okay.
And that made her fall in love with him.
But
she didn't know what that meant because she had never really been shown love.
He engaged her in a way that nobody else, did.
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, she did sing. And one of the things, because her voice was technically a synthesizer, she was able to use just about any singing. But she did have a natural singing ability as well, because she would sing before when she was a child. She would hum as a child.
But we should say a lot of these people that came to her party had aspirations. They really wanted to be.
Oh, they all did.
Yeah, they really wanted to be on her ship,
Yeah, it was, but it wasn't because she sang. It was because she was a new ship. They would be her first bronze.
Right.
Yeah.
Almost kind of like she was attracted to the man that looked in her eyes instead of at her chest.
Yeah.
There you go.
Scenario.
Right.
Been there.
So very much, they had an attraction to each other that went beyond, any kind of physical attraction.
Yeah. Well, it would kind of have to be.
Yeah, it would have to be.
One of the things Jenin did do was, though, he did have a portrait. Was it Jenin that did that? Or Niall that had the portrait?
Niall.
Oh, okay, never mind. But yeah, it is possible through genetic tracing to get an idea of what she would have looked like.
Well, anyway, they had a breaking in period, or they became calibrated to each other's idiosyncrasies and got along swell. And eventually they had
missions over missions over missions.
Well, eventually they had a mission that was central to the story, right?
Right.
Where they had to go to a planet that was suffering from the plague, right?
No.
Well, they had to rescue religious zealots from a supernova.
Right.
Oh yeah, that was the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's at the beginning.
Okay. Well, for some reason I thought that they had two missions depicted in the opening story.
There might have been more than one mission in that first story.
The central one, I guess you're right, though, was
the one where he is.
I think that's the one where he dies in the line of duty.
Right. Their first mission is highlighted because they do very well. And then their second mission, or another mission later on, is highlighted because he passes away.
Yeah. And Helva, of course, is completely devastated.
Inconsolable with grief. Yeah.
Right.
Because she had actually fallen in love with Jenin.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how
So she's devastated. And go ahead, Aaron.
Jenin was a good, match for her. They had a deep connection and a mutual appreciation, and he had a good singing voice, and that encouraged her to sing. They became known as the ship who sang, and originally they were mocked for that, and Jenin was going to kick anybody's ass that made fun of them.
Right on.
But after a while, one of their missions, that the other mission that's highlighted in that first beginning, is they do something extremely heroic, and because of that heroic situation, people stop making fun of it, and so he stops having to get into bar fights.
Yep. Now they're just famous for being the ship who sang.
Right.
Kris, I know that you updated me that you had gotten through chapter 4. So what did you what was your impressions as you read the first chapter? Not before.
Yeah. Oh, I did actually finish it now. I finished it earlier today.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't really know. I liked it though.
Yeah.
What do you think about the premise behind the whole premise of taking people that are handicapped and encapsulating them so that their brains can be used to do jobs?
I think it's interesting. It kind of makes you think, like, what would you do in that situation?
Yeah. Well, I know one of the things that you learn later is that they really don't do children who are older or adults because they can't adjust psychologically as well. And most of them can't.
Yeah.
So they tend to do it just with like 1 year, 1 or 2 is the max. So like if someone were in a horrific accident at like 3 or 4 years old, the likelihood is they probably would not encapsulate them.
Yeah.
It's a concept that has been reimagined over and over in science fiction, right? The idea of fusing humans and cyborgs.
Cyborgs.
Yeah.
Life. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this was, I'm sure, Asimov predates her, right? I'm sure that he wrote on this quite a bit, and it's not like anything new, but
Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke, yeah.
Yeah. The thing I struggled with, though, this first chapter, and by the way, McCaffrey calls this her favorite work that she ever did. She dedicated it to her father. She mentions taps in the story. Lisa and I were discussing whether
Jenin passes away,
was singing taps for Jenin, but whether she was or not, her father had been a military man, and he had been eulogized with taps, when he passed. So this was very close to her heart. But I found the writing in it to be not as advanced as later on, and she would leave out the tail, and it was hard to follow because she would introduce terms, sort of.
Well, you needed a glossary.
Yeah, I was lost.
And in a lot of her books later on, there are glossaries. This was it's a compilation, like you said. These are 4 short stories, or 5 short stories, 1 novella.
Yeah.
With a finishing piece.
Right.
To give them a happy ending.
Right.
Yeah, and she did. She had 8 more years by the time it was a book, so her writing naturally would improve as it goes.
Right.
I didn't know it took that long.
Yeah, the first story was 1961, and it was published in 1969.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think that she imagined it as a book when she started, or you think that just she got to a point and?
I don't think originally she did. No, It was a short story. It was all short stories. Mm-hmm. I don't think she was. Her first novel was Restoree, and it was something of a thumb your nose. It's not one of my favorites of hers. But it's kind of a thumb your nose at the powers that be.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Terri, do you have anything to add before we move on to the next one?
Well, a technical question.
Uh-huh.
This little red sign keeps popping up telling me to leave. What is that?
What?
What is that? Are you booting me out or something?
No.
I'm not. I don't know what Kris is doing, but I'm not. I mean, I don't
know. Don't leave, Terri.
Don't leave. We need you.
It's right there on the right-hand side, right above Aaron's head. It says leave.
Oh no, that's that's the button you click if you do actually want to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's your quit button.
Oh, okay. I got it. I didn't know what
a red button with white letters in it.
Yeah.
That's
it.
All right. Well, at least once you take
it's not a command.
Philip was giving me a hint.
Being unfriendly. Hey, knock out all that static on the wall. No.
So,
And the sound got better, actually, too.
Yeah, sounds really good.
One of the things that Central Worlds does after Jenin dies is they try to create missions between members of Central Worlds to kind of give them the opportunity to help each other heal. And that becomes very obvious in the next 2 chapters. 1, the ship who mourned, and 2, the ship who killed. Now, in the ship who mourned, she is connected to Theoda. And Theoda is a medical officer whose family passed away because of a plague. And that plague is currently, a plague that's very similar to it, is currently afflicting another world. And Theoda she still has a certain amount of grief, survivor's guilt, not so much grief. So one of her things is
grief too. She lost her family.
Right. But I mean, it's been many years. It's been more than 100 years since she lost her family. She's over 100 years old. And so one of the things that she's done is she became a physiotherapist, because one of the things that might have saved her family would have been physical therapy. Basically, her family died because their bodies, it was a shut-in syndrome. And had they been able to do physical therapy on them, had they realized that, they might have survived. So this plague on this other world, she believes that this physical therapy program that she has come up with for these types of plagues might actually save the people on this world. So in her capacity as a medical scout ship, Helva brings Theoda to, what's the name of this world?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know you are. You don't have the name of the world.
Anagoni 4.
Anagoni 4.
Yeah.
So, Helva does not get a Brawn designation. Once again, she doesn't get the Brawn that she hopes for. In Theoda. Theoda is a temporary assignment for this medical situation. So, they get to Anagoni 4, and with the help of a medical professional who was vacationing on the world, who lost his wife and daughter to the plague, and whose son is the only surviving member of his family, and Helva, she is eventually able to prove that her physical therapy plan is a good idea, and that even if they can't save everyone, they'll be able to save a lot of people.
Yeah. Theoda, not Helva, but yeah.
Yes, Theoda. Thank you. So, what do you guys think about this story?
It was kind of cool that she had a partner or companion in this one that was going through the same kind of grief that she was. Mm-hmm. And it's also interesting that once they got there, the people that were afflicted by the plague couldn't move their bodies like she can't.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, but that's a good point. And then I think the point that came across to me too, that because it's a medical situation, and that just the emotional therapy that this Brawn could help provide to Helva, and is a point there, and just seeing people suffer and all that kind of thing, a lot of it helped a little bit, like in the healing process for Helva.
Right. They could commiserate.
Well, and part of it was the fact that initially Theoda had no idea who Helva was and didn't care. I mean, it's not that she didn't care, but she was too busy with her own issues. And
I think she was
Helva
exhausted
found
too
that
when she
refreshing.
first got on the ship, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. She hadn't slept in over 100 hours. Yeah. So Helva was refreshed by the fact that the first thing she didn't do was say, "Oh, how are you, sweetheart?" That kind of thing. So it was just kind of nice and refreshing. And then once Theoda realized who she was, they were able to start commiserating from a more even place. Mm-hmm.
So it's about like hope, right? I mean, this chapter seems to be about sort of coming out of grief. Yeah.
Healing.
So Theoda was able to help the victims of the plague with physical therapy, right? I mean, that's a pretty profound thought, healing through.
That goes back to Anne McCaffrey's more homeopathic lifestyle. She lived on a farm. She didn't go in for a lot of Western medicine. She was an American expat in Ireland. She married a man from Ireland, and they had kids and horses. She liked to say they had kids, horses, and cats.
Yeah.
They also had some dogs.
I wonder where Inez comes from, because that's not really a.
Well, McCaffrey isn't her birth name.
Oh, okay.
We don't know. I don't know that she's Irish by birth.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yeah, Makes McCaffrey sense. Was her married name.
I never think of that.
Yeah.
It's like an episode. I'm so like tunnel vision on that.
Yeah, you kind of are. So, what do you think, Kris?
I mean, I don't really have anything to add except the same things that they said, but
yeah.
I do remember. It's hard for me to remember as much because I listened to the audiobook, but I did while I was drawing, so I might have zoned out some parts by accident.
Understood. I listen to audiobooks a lot, and I've been known to zone out, which makes it nice if you want to re-listen to a book later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we move on to the next chapter, chapter 3, The Ship Who Killed.
The Ship Who Killed.
Yeah.
In this one, she ironically or cruelly, it's hard to say. She and another woman named Kira are tasked with delivering 300,000 embryos to a planet on which much of their population has passed away.
I think some kind of power outage destroyed its embryo banks.
Yeah.
So they're on what they called a stork run mission.
Well, it's more than that, because they're also receiving children of all ages, whether children that are orphans, older kids, adults even. So I think there was some kind of an illness or a catastrophic accident. So they're delivering, their job is 300 embryos. And the embryos are being delivered in ribbons. And Kira, the somewhat cruel part of this is that Helva, who will never have children, and Kira, who believes she cannot have children, especially by her deceased husband, are basically on a stork run. So that's kind of, ironic. So the two of them bond over this fact. They go to a lot of the places where they're supposed to pick up embryos, and while en route, after their first delivery, they're out they've gotten most of the ones from their second section, because they're doing these in like 100,000 at a time. So it's 3 basic trips going around the galaxy, picking up embryos. And during the course of their second run, they receive a communication from a world that, an unexpected one, that says that they have 20,000 embryos. So Central World says, yeah, sure, okay, it's the right genetic mix. So go ahead and get go ahead and go get these embryos. Well, what they don't realize is that during the 20 years since the last visit from Central Worlds, this particular world has become a death cult, or been taken over by a death cult. And when they get there, the Kira's suicidal bent. After her husband passed away, she lost their baby, and because of that, she has been suicidal. In fact, she had tried to kill herself after she lost the baby. So that's what's going on there. And they get to this world, and the death cult takes Kira away, and they eventually find out that a ship who previously had lost her brawn had crash landed on the world, in the volcano of that world, and that's where the death cult rose up from. And one of the problems is that there's a gas, a hallucinogenic gas that's released by the volcano that started to become active around this time. And so the people were easily manipulated by this ship into, thinking of death as a gift as opposed to something that should be put off.
I remember that now. I kind of forgot that chapter a bit, but yeah, they kind of viewed it as, what's that? The crazy cult that where they all had gym shoes on and the space.
The Brax Davidians.
Yeah.
Similar to that.
They had that kind of mindset about it.
Yeah. And one of the prevailing themes is Dylanism, as a form of as a way to inform protest.
That's what pulled Phil in, I think.
Yes, I love this chapter because of that. That's a kind of flaky, crazy concept that that I like. It's like.
So you can take it from here.
We talked about the hippie episode of Star Trek. The one that all the geeks and everybody shed on because they didn't. They thought, that's so flaky, that's so weird. You got Spock playing a lute and stuff.
Yeah.
So I like that type of thing. And also, what was the other reference? Oh, I like the wrestling from the 80s where it's over the top and crazy and not realistic and completely bizarre,
Yeah.
Anything that's weird, and I felt like that particular, the Dylanist idea, tying that in with a contemporary artist like Bob Dylan, who's not so contemporary anymore, I guess, but.
Yeah.
But. I thought that was flaky and weird. I really liked it.
1966, this was written, so it was very contemporary then.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's written in like the 2020 whatever. Like 2024, 24 or something.
Like
is where it's set.
She'd be a real fan to project
the 24th century.
That the power of his music would project out to the future like that.
Yeah.
She must have been a real fan.
Very much so. She used to hold solars in her home, and her children's friends, her children's hippie friends would be there, and they would stay at the house for long periods of time, and they would play music and discuss ideas.
So I enjoyed this chapter. This is probably what drew me in, as Aaron referred to. It's like I was kind of lost at sea for the first 2 chapters. I was like, what the hell is a brawn? What is this? What is a shell person? My mind was starting to blow.
Yeah. And this morning he asked me, what's a shell person?
And I'm like, this chapter actually, And
not only did he read the book, but he edited the audiobook.
But yeah, that's kind of like looking at something under a microscope. You can't tell something.
You can't see the forest for the trees.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm reading a book, as in for my audio, as I did with this book, I couldn't really tell you a lot of details about the book because I'm trying to get the verbiage right.
So, Kris, did you know what she was referring to when she talked about a Dylanist?
I kind of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's very famously known for protest songs.
Oh,
I'll play some for you, Kris. I've got some CDs here.
Yeah.
I'll
Blowing in the Wind. That's his biggest protest song.
Yeah.
Subterranean Homesick Blues.
So if you take
I'm on the pavement thinking about the government.
Subterranean Homesick Blues is a little deep for me.
So if you were to take out Dylan and replace it with a contemporary artist that you're familiar with, that has that type of reach.
Yeah, she'd be a Swiftist or something.
Yeah.
A Swiftie.
Swiftie, yeah.
I already got him.
Or John Lennon. John Lennon, Kris. In his rebellious kind of peace and love, war, protest music type era.
Yeah. So, Kris, you
still before her time, but
that's not my fault.
His time.
Are you a fan of John Lennon, Kris?
Yeah, I recently got into like the Beatles more like a year ago.
Okay.
I haven't listened to a lot of their solo stuff though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We did do one episode on a John Lennon album, Plastic Ono Band.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
That was a good one.
I wasn't present for that one.
That's the last time we had Dean on. Dean was on our show. Now he's on HBO.
Was that when I was in the hospital?
Or I think you were in the hospital when we did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually.
I was okay with that.
But yeah, we should plug Dean's appearance on. Is it HBO or Showtime?
HBO. He's on Winning Time, the Lakers series. Yeah. He's plays a sports writer. Is it Jim Murray?
I think that's it. Yeah.
One of the LA Times sports writers from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. So yeah, we've had famous people on every once in a while. Yeah. Including
my Ship Who Killed notes. I just have Kira was a young, widowed, barren, suicidal Dylanist on a stork run mission to collect and deliver embryos to a planet that lost its embryo banks. Mm-hmm. And a rogue brain ship deceives them into landing to pick up embryos. The ship set itself up as a god, constantly broadcasting its suffering to the citizens. The citizens all had these little communication buttons that, just like Kira was wearing. And the ship talked to them all the time, all of her laments, and that plus the volcanic gas, I guess, kept them
off kilter.
It kept them as a death worshipping cult.
Right.
So, I claim this as my favorite chapter so far. However, I do have some ambiguity over the fact. Helva was able to utilize the Dylanism to awake Kira from the trance and essentially save her, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
That's integral to the story.
The situation.
Yeah.
I think if the embryos and Helva hadn't been on the table, if Kira had been there alone, I'm not sure it would have worked.
Yeah, there was a list of planets that Kira wasn't allowed to go to because of her suicidal tendencies, and Helva made sure that this planet was added to that list.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if no one else, does anyone else have anything to add about chapter 3, the ship is killed?
Yes. At the end of the chapter, something that Philip missed, Helva was able to point out that Kira would be able to use DNA or product from her husband's family to have a baby that would at least be part her husband. So like his parents' DNA and her own DNA to give birth to a child that was part her and part him. And one of the things that Kira was suicidal about was the fact that she was unable to have his child. And part of the reason was because in this society, if you're going out into space, you are expected to provide genetic material just in case. And what is it? She and her husband, through her devices, had decided not to donate their DNA because they wanted to have a biological child the old-fashioned way. And when she lost her husband and then miscarried, she lost that, and she felt like it was her fault. So she lost everything through her own devices, is how she saw it.
Okay.
I don't know if we mentioned that Helva blew up the rogue ship.
Oh, yeah. Helva is finally able to, once she figures out that it's the rogue ship, she's able to get the code. Every encased shell person has a security code. And that security code is the only thing that will allow the shell to be opened. Helva was able to get a copy of that code, and she was able to open so that the rogue ship was
opened her column,
so she could open its column, and then it could finally die.
All right.
Is this a chapter where she where Helva learns about the going rogue option that some of them?
Well, it's first mentioned right after Jenin passes away. She doesn't realize it's possible until it's mentioned by one of her, I guess, another ship that named Sylvia, which was Jenin's father's ship. And okay. Sylvia volunteers to see Jenin from the exploding world back to Central Worlds, where Jenin is going to be interred. And that's where, Sylvia says at one point, I didn't think you'd go rogue, but, they wanted us to be there just in case. And Helva's like, would you have let me? And she's like, yeah, I would have.
Okay. I remember that being part of it, but I couldn't remember where it fit in at.
Well, and one of the things is they don't tell the shell people, especially the ships, about going rogue, because they don't want them to think about that possibility.
Yeah.
It's the things they use to manipulate them. Just like, in essence, this is an indentured servitude almost situation, in that Central Worlds does not give them all this medical and technology out of the goodness of their hearts. They charge you for it. And once you've graduated from your education, that's when you can begin paying back your debt.
Your payback.
From birth forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And once you get, aren't you paying it off all the time that you're doing the missions? Or, yeah. And then after you've accumulated to where you've paid off the debt, then you can make choices about what you want to do next.
Correct.
Yeah.
You can re-enlist, I guess, or
work in the private sector where you'd be highly in demand.
Or you can just leave.
But Helva,
go explore.
Helva was able to accelerate her payback, right? I mean, she was able to make double payments.
Situations that she was in.
She keeps getting all these big bonuses for finding and destroying the rogue ship and this and that. Yeah, she's record time able to pay herself off.
Right. Yep. If it was a video game, she'd be racking up points.
Exactly. She'd have free games if it was pinball.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that's really good background. I mean, I think we nailed a lot of that background right there. But all right, here we go. We're like at the edge of the Mojave Desert of stories here. The dramatic mission is like a.
This was almost a novel by itself.
This almost
chapter
broke me. This almost broke me. And when I talked to Kris said that that he was in the middle of chapter 4 the other night when I talked to him about. So
Yeah.
yeah. So did you make it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finished this morning.
Right. It was a long one though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely. It was more than half of the book was this chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
And
was
not
a
to
weird
say-
one.
It was a weird one.
Who wants to talk about this one?
I'll give this one a go. This one's from 1969. There's no brawn in this one. There's a theater troupe on a mission to exchange Shakespeare plays for new energy technology. And there's various tensions between the members of the acting troupe. And Helva, who knows all of Shakespeare, kind of ends up joining the troupe. And the actors and Helva need to go through this consciousness switching technique in order to survive in the chlorine-based atmosphere on the planet. So they're in these, I think they call them envelopes. And they, after they've been in an envelope, they start associating with, they start acting in the real world like they're getting the feelings in the envelopes, like people's energy levels and colors or whatever. It was pretty trying for them to go back and forth between the consciousnesses.
Yeah.
It was a fun chapter. I like, the...
Yeah, it's my favorite.
There's a lot of intrigue within the troupe.
Yeah, the different personalities of the actors and...
Yeah, the Juliet was a real bitch, if I may say.
Philip refers to her, he refers to as the Karen of the story.
There you go.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And, jealous and all those negative female qualities.
Right, entitled, upset about things without even understanding what she's upset about, completely oblivious to the...
Absolutely no consideration for anyone but herself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the main actor, what's he called? There's a name for it.
Prain.
Well, his name is Prain, but the
Domino
Solar.
or Dom.
He's the Solar.
Solar. Yeah. Solar.
He's addicted to some drugs that are to improve your memory, your recall.
Yeah. Called Mind
And
Trap.
they were thought to be harmless, but they're what is it, weakening his bones or something? They're causing physical damage to him.
I can't remember if it was a genetic aberration in him or if there was some kind of an accident that caused the problem. But Mind Trap, based on the story, is used by 999,999 billions of people all over the galaxy with no problem. So this is an almost unheard of situation.
You think it's from overuse?
No, people across the galaxies overuse that shit.
Okay.
It's a vitamin, in essence. And it's commonly used for people that want to, I believe it originated in, according to the history, it originated in like the 22nd century as an Alzheimer's drug. And over the course of the intervening centuries, it was improved and improved and improved. Come here, baby girl. Give it up.
So the thing that I thought was interesting. Okay, now Aaron, we both have a friend who is a big science fiction fan. That's not unusual. A lot of our friends are, but I believe that Sean would look at this and say that some of the concepts are so esoteric. Like the idea that the acting would be worth what they're trading for.
Well, it's not the
would be
acting
somewhat
as so much as the ideas. the originality, because they're in almost a completely science world.
Right.
So the idea of expending energy, and this is actually stated, the idea of expending energy for no other reason than entertainment is it's just like, what?
Well, just to play devil's advocate, and I like the story, but I feel like there are some hardline science fiction fans and writers that would poke holes in some of the ideas.
Well, you have what's called hard sci-fi and soft sci-fi. This would be the soft sci-fi.
Right. Yeah. This would definitely be the soft sci-fi.
Who's that sci-fi writer? We had Edward Lerner.
He's more hard sci-fi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Except he
hard ass sci-fi.
Kris, this guy, he was a NASA engineer that had worked on the space shuttle, and he had been in flight simulators at NASA, and he was read into. He was a scientist, but he did not want to entertain any questions we had about science.
No,
it was just.
It was all about that book, only the book.
He was an astrophysicist.
Right.
So it was a little disappointing, but he was a nice guy.
Yeah, he was fine.
I wonder if some of the information, was sensitive or classified, that he was afraid those questions would come up or something. Because don't they have to have a certain type of clearance?
It depends on what they're working on, but yeah.
Yeah, we weren't asking him for nuclear codes or anything.
No, it was more like we were asking him, what do they serve in the NASA cafeteria?
I think I asked him about unidentified flying saucers or something.
I don't want to talk about that.
And he just shut that down. There ain't no science. There's none of that shit.
Which I don't believe. So.
Oh, well.
Yeah, but maybe he's not allowed to. Maybe that is something we're not allowed to, address.
That could be. That might be the one thing that's most sensitive when you think about it, I guess.
All
right. Well, yeah, I feel like. Does anybody have anything else to say about Chapter 4? I mean.
I know that when were they Beta Corvi or whatever the place they went when they
Beta Corvi
when they applauded at the end, or when they expressed their appreciation, the energy was so much that it almost killed the troop.
Right. They had to go back to the ship and recover for a little while. And the Beta Corvi didn't understand that, the situation there. Yeah. Also, just to keep with the spoiler alerts, the way this ends is when they get back to the ship, Comer destroys Prain's body. And in response to her destroying the body, the Korviki refuse to, they take her back down to the planet, and the Korviki don't allow her to come back.
Interesting.
She called Helva a tin-plated bitch, too.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, and yeah. That's how Ansra, Prain, and Prain's nurse stay on Korviki.
Yeah, Prain's nurse was in love with Prain.
Right. Prain's nurse stayed because she wanted to.
A bodiless Bernhardt.
Right.
I don't know who Bernhardt is.
Sandra Bernhardt.
This is before her time.
Actresses in history.
No, that was all.
That's like she was like the late 1900s, early 2000s.
You're right, but it wasn't Sandra Bernhardt. It was some other Bernhardt.
Sarah Bernhardt. But Sarah Bernhardt was a nurse.
Yeah, but I think Sandra Bernhardt is actually a related, I'm not 100%. But yeah, Sarah Bernhardt was a nurse, but she was also an actress, and she was known for her flamboyant acting style.
Yeah.
All
right. Yeah. Chapter 5: The Ship Who Dissembled. The Ship Who Dissembled. I don't know if my notes will make any sense, but I'll take a turn at trying this. Niall Paralon warned Helva about Terron when she selected him as her new Brawn, but Helva is defiant of her supervisor's advice and goes ahead and commissions him to be the Brawn. But they were incompatible.
Right from the start.
Yeah. He was like the antithesis of Jenin. And their arguments were not playful, and they were not, didn't build tension and add chemistry or anything. They were pretty brutal. So they clashed.
Yeah, he saw her as an inhuman, imperfect machine.
Right. He was prejudiced against, one of those.
He was emotionally abusive toward her, too.
Yeah.
Right.
He constantly denigrates shell people and women in general.
Right.
Or women and shell people in general.
You can imagine anybody that didn't look and sound just like him, he probably had an issue with, probably.
Wasn't this the chapter where they did like sensory deprivation or something?
Yes. She's removed from the ship, and they use the kidnappers use sensory deprivation to torture and basically to get the shell people to do what it wants.
Yeah.
He wanted to collect these, what he saw as oddities, the kidnapper, I think.
Yeah.
And I think did they have a mission to find the missing scout ships, or was that just something that Terran used in his argument that brain ships are imperfect because they go missing?
Right. He was saying that they were just disappearing left and right, flibberty gibbet. And she was saying there's something wrong because that is unusual. And he's like, well, they can't be depended on, so you can't really say.
And then Helva gets kidnapped and is physically tormented.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, so does he.
Sensory deprived.
Right. Fortunately, Helva, for whatever reason, is made of sterner stuff. At least 2 of the previously kidnapped brains have completely lost their minds. And I think there's 4 total before they get Helva. Fortunately, Niall Paralon was on the line with Helva. She was actually contacting him to tell him that the minute they got back to Central Worlds, Terran was getting off her ship and never going on again. And because of that, even though she hadn't told Niall yet, he was still on the line when she was kidnapped.
Yeah. Plus, he was obsessed with her.
Right. Well, we don't
know that yet, but
still chapter 5. Yeah, Niall was obsessed with Helva. He was in love with her.
Well, some of the brains that were held captive went mad, right?
Yeah, 2 of them went completely mad. The other 2 would need intense psychological assistance.
Yeah. 2 went completely mad. The other 2 were just mildly peeved. No.
Yeah, right. Mildly peeved. Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
So Helva, it builds the point. Helva, have you mentioned? I don't know. I'm sorry. Did you mention that Helva fired Terran?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
She's ready to.
End of the chapter. She's ready to fire him, which is why she's on the line with Niall when
she's just getting ready to say, get his ass off my ship, get his ass off my body, whatever you want to call it. and then the kidnapping occurred.
Right, because he insists that she allow the people on the planet that are acting funny. He insists she allow them on the ship. She didn't want to.
That's right.
But he insists she lets them on, and that's when they incapacitate him, and somehow
permission aboard denied, and then he overrode her.
Column. Right. Yeah, she said denied, and he overrode her.
Okay. Anything else?
So she was firing him already.
Anything else to add to this chapter?
What else? I mean, how do you feel about this one, Terry?
It was one that I kind of breezed through a little bit because it wasn't grabbing me. I got the relationship where he was kind of a asshole to her.
Right.
And got all that, and then I kind of skimmed through the rest of that chapter, and I think it has a lot to do with things. And and it just like, okay, at least she doesn't have eyeballs that he can blacken and
yeah.
I wonder
Understood.
if this is the last published short story that was published on its own, as its own story. It didn't wrap up the thing. So I wonder if by this point maybe she's thinking she's going to put the book together.
She must have been, because that's the same year that the book came out.
Yeah.
So that might have been where she was.
At the end of the story too, she got the bonus for finding 4 Shanghai ships, and even with the penalty for firing her brawn, she's got enough money to pay herself off now.
Yeah. So if this was like a miniseries, something on Netflix, this would be like a penultimate episode or
season finale.
Yeah. Or this would be the last episode before they cancel the series unexpectedly, and then there's a movie.
There you go. 10 years later.
Yeah.
Kris, what do you think about, you're an artist, so what do you think about some of this artwork that I've been putting up from this book?
Oh, the book covers?
Yeah, I like them. I think I can tell, like, they're definitely from the 60s.
Yeah.
But it's awesome.
I like the one with the eyeballs in the front.
The one that kind of looks like an owl?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he does kind of look like an owl. Or she.
The ship looks like an owl with a woman's eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the one that's up now. They're kind of like an insect, too.
Yeah.
Are there stalagmites or something?
No, those are buildings.
Buildings?
Yeah.
Alien buildings.
Yeah, they're alien buildings. She's on an alien world.
I have trouble picturing what this brain looks like. Where is it in the ship?
It's behind the metal column. We never really see it.
There's a metal column in the middle of the ship.
Okay, the one the other guy, her love interest, would look at.
The one he faced, yeah.
Yeah, when he would be talking to her. Jenin.
And it's a really big ship. I mean, it's much bigger. You think of a scout ship as like smaller, but this is a pretty big ship.
Yeah.
I think it's bigger in our, it's bigger than the TARDIS for sure.
What about the Starship Enterprise? How big is it?
Smaller than the Enterprise. Okay. More like the Enterprise shuttle, but bigger.
Yeah.
Maybe like twice the size of the shuttle.
Okay. Decent. Yeah.
Or even 3 times the size, because it's got cargo holds. It's got bedrooms. It's got a kitchen. It's got the central area where they're able to set up like the play.
Usually has lots of coffee too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yep.
And the fuel, where do they refuel? It never talks about them refueling or where the fuel is held or what type of fuel that you're using.
Well, they do talk about the fuel tanks, and they talk about they refuel at Central Worlds.
Oh, we need to ask Kris our favorite question at the end of this.
Okay.
You know which one.
I do.
Yeah, it fits right in.
Oh, no.
It's a silly question. Don't worry about it.
It's very silly.
It's very.
There is no wrong answer.
There's also no right answer.
That is correct. To be fair. Okay. So.
Might as well do it now. She's in suspense.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many bathrooms are there on the Death Star?
There's no right answer, no wrong answer.
47.
There is no answer.
Just collecting.
Yeah.
I think I said 1.
I said at least 99. Somebody else said none because, what is it? Darth Vader doesn't need to go. He can just whisk it away with his brain. And the clones don't go to the bathroom because they're mechanical.
But then you have
They're
people
not.
I don't think so either. But that was somebody else's answer.
Yeah.
All right.
So what do you think, Kris?
I don't.
She said 47, right? Something like that.
I don't know anything about Star Wars.
I love it. Oh, well, 42. Never mind.
That's a Hitchhiker's Guide reference.
You got it.
Right.
The Death Star is the size of a planet, right? So you can't just have one facility for one individual. That one individual, you got to account for that.
No, you got a big line going around the star.
Not to mention,
That's what I pictured.
Emperor Palpatine needs to have his own personal bathroom.
Right. He couldn't share with anybody.
He's not sharing. Yeah.
You think Palpatine's aboard the Death Star?
At some point he is. I know he's on there at some point.
Okay.
Well, he don't want to go after that asshole general that went on to the planet and killed who was it?
Oh yeah.
I can't
Ren.
remember. Ren. Yeah.
Kylo Ren.
Ren, but yeah.
Oh,
No.
are we still on the same book?
No, they're talking about Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's get
All
back
right,
to
sorry.
Let's get back to this alternate.
I think we move on to the partnered ship now, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The final chapter.
So in the final chapter, Helva has paid herself off. She is free and clear. But she is lured back to Central Worlds by the galactic supervisor and her personal supervisor, Niall Paralon. Riley gets Niall to help him talk Helva into re-upping so that she can get the new Corvicki star drive. Helva wants this star drive.
Yeah. Faster than light travel, I think.
Right, faster than light travel. And so she really does want it. They're not really tricking her like they think, like Niall thinks. Niall thinks of her as this naive child who's being bamboozled by him. And when she says that she'll only agree to it if Niall becomes her brawn, Niall runs away because he doesn't want her to be trapped by this contract.
He goes on a drunken bender is what he does.
Well, he goes on a drunken bender and then tries to get off world without being caught.
Drunken whore and bender.
Right. Mm-hmm. Only he doesn't actually whore or get drunk. He's finalizing his affairs so he can escape off world before they catch him and use him to trap her in this contract that he feels he's tricked her into. But the truth is, she feels she's tricked him because she wants him. And she wants the new Corvicki drive. And what else is she going to do? She's never known anything but Central Worlds her entire life. And she's very open to the idea of continuing. Not to mention that by the time she gets this new faster than light travel, she'll be able to earn her way out of her current contract even faster than her original contract. So she's only getting a few more years in her very, very long life because as a shell person, she is expected to live longer than your average regular unshelled person. Way longer.
Yeah.
There are shell people at this point that she's aware of that are more than 700 years old.
Do they get new?
She's only been in her ship for 10 years. I'm sorry, go ahead, Terry.
Oh, do they get new shells? Like, don't they rust or anything?
It's titanium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know from titanium because that's the kind of jewelry I wear.
Well, what happens to titanium? It must have a weakness somewhere.
I don't know.
It's kind of light.
It's used for surgical, like knees and stuff. Most knees are titanium.
Yeah, and backs and bone replacement things or joint replacement things.
And the reason why is because it doesn't rust.
Yeah, but if it doesn't, I was just thinking it has to have some other downfall if you're talking like 700 years or 1,000 years for Helva's lifetime.
But
there must be another weakness about it that maybe,
hasn't come to light yet.
Yeah, it doesn't come to light for the time spans that we're using it for.
Right.
Yeah. And the likelihood is, if that is true, then I'm sure she can afford to replace her shell every few years.
Yeah, like a facelift.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, where's the brain going to go while they do the work?
They put you they prepare the new shell and then put you under anesthesia. As she's growing up over the years, her body did grow to a point. Even though they did use chemical retardation to keep it from growing to full adult size. So over the years, there were 2 or 3 times where she had to have a new shell because she was outgrowing it.
So Niall, Paralon, and Helva live happily ever after, as we are supposed to believe. Her former supervisor.
As of the end of the story. As of the end of this
spoiler
story.
alert.
So there are updates to Helva's story in, I believe, in the City Who Fought and in the Ship Who Searched. Or at least she is mentioned. They are mentioned.
Okay. Like Sonny and Cher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they go renegade together and fly off into the galaxies together?
As of the end of the book, no. But the only way you go renegade or rogue is if you take off on your contract. If you're paid out,
free.
You can go explore all you want. That's nobody's business but yours.
Yeah, but then she won't get her gizmo.
Yeah, she did re-up.
But one of the reasons why she wants the gizmo after she re-ups is because she wants to go to the
Horsehead Nebula?
Yes, the Horsehead Nebula. The ship whose, I guess it's their
Vegas?
No, not Vegas. It's their the Fountain of Youth. Kind of like their mysterious thing, this place that's so far away that it's impossible to get there in your lifetime. Only now with the Corvicki drive, they should be able to actually get there and come back.
Yeah. I think she and Jenin used to dream about going to the Horsehead Nebula.
Yes, that was one of their little jokes. One of their couple jokes. Yeah. Kind of like you and me traveling anywhere. Yeah. That's one of our little couple jokes.
It'd be a good reality show, I think.
Oh, yeah, listening to us plan not to travel.
Yeah. Well, wow, I mean, I enjoyed it more than, to be honest with you, I was not looking forward to reading that.
The only reason he actually read it was because I audioed it.
Right. Right. Kris, I'd be interested in your point of view, because this book was actually an adult novel. It was intended for someone of your age, except back in 1969, So I'd be curious, your pure thoughts on it, the juxtaposition against time.
Do you think other people your age would enjoy it?
I feel like sometimes the words would be confusing, like some of the bigger words. But otherwise, I actually liked it more than I thought. I thought it was interesting.
Some of the words, it's not so much that they're bigger as they were more Irish.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had trouble. I don't know if you could tell from listening to the book, but I had a little trouble pronouncing some of them. Yeah. And Philip actually did have to look a couple of words up.
Yeah.
Some of them I thought they were like made up words. for
some of them were.
Brain ship.
Science fiction, there's a lot of created
Beta
language.
Corvelli, whatever, yeah. Beta Corvelli.
Yeah.
Mind
Trap, yeah.
The Corvicki, yeah.
That's the type of stuff that made it difficult at first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Introducing those things without fully fleshing out what they were.
And especially if you don't know what you don't know. You know?
Yeah.
That makes sense. You don't know what is a word you would need to look up that's just a regular word, or a word that was created for this particular universe.
Story. And you're not going to find that word anywhere trying to look it up.
And that's why in her later books there are glossaries that include pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
Because it turns out that Jenin is actually pronounced Janan.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
That sounds more male, I think, than Jenin.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
I did my American version. She did her Irish version.
Okay.
All right. So I'm thinking about doing a movie of this. Who would I cast as Helva? Kris, who would I?
It would just be a voice, right?
Right.
Yeah, well, there is an image at the end. Niall does create an image of Helva. So there is an image.
Well, I have a feeling Chris's Helva would have have ears and this.
Is that something you do, Kris, when you read a book?
It would be Scarlett Johansson, right?
Yeah, that would work.
No, I remember like how I imagined of them to look.
As an artist, is that something you normally do?
Yeah.
Anne is in later books not so much, but in her earlier books, she has a tendency not to be overly descriptive as far as appearance goes.
Yeah, I
know
that.
And I think that's because she, like I, appreciate the ability to create the image in their own mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's really fun to do.
Yeah.
So would you need like a voice actress more than the physical appearance of the actress wouldn't really matter because they wouldn't be shown.
Right.
I mean, would it be Melissa McCarthy cracking jokes, or would it be Scarlett Johansson, with a totally different tenor to her voice?
I mentioned her because one of the reasons I was just reading some stuff about the 20th anniversary of Lost in Translation and rewatched it last week. And Sofia Coppola chose her largely because of her deep voice.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I could see that. Although the voice would have to be, I would almost even say someone known for their, like Kate McKinnon. For the simple reason that she is good at manipulating her voice because it's synthetic. Mm. So you need someone.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Terri.
As I was reading it, I kept just picturing Helva like a siren, a mythical creature that, lured all the sailors, into shipwreck. So picturing a sexy, alluring voice and.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean,
make her voice whatever she wants it to be, right?
Right.
Well, so why not make it a good one?
My information now is from the fact that I know that Helva's family was Scandinavian, and that's hence the name.
Oh, that's interesting.
So she was Nordic and blonde and tall, or at least she would have been genetically.
So she sounded like Carla.
Could be. Although Carla was actually more German than Swedish.
Well,
Scarlett Johansson fits there, though. Isn't she Swedish?
Yeah.
I think it'd make a good movie.
Johansson.
Don't you think it'd be an interesting sci-fi movie?
Would you want it to be a cartoon or a CGI type live action?
It'd be a great cartoon, actually.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if it were done in in the style of what's that one Chinese the Japanese
anime?
You know what I'm talking? Yeah, the anime. Like,
Anime, yeah.
Yeah, if it was an anime style, that would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, why would it be? I guess. But,
why wouldn't it be?
oh. Anyway, this has been fantastic. Kris.
Thank you for joining us, and hopefully you'll be into more episodes of Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, Kris. Good to see you again, Terri.
Good to see you, Aaron. This was fun.
What do you got?
Is Kris still there?
What?
Oh, you were about to say something, and we just talked over you.
Go on, Kris. We're listening.
Oh, I can't remember what I was gonna say, but I was just saying thank you and stuff.
Thank you.
Me on.
Well, yeah. It's really special for me when we have Terri, your dad, and you, and family. Yeah. It's really important to me. So
yeah,
I really appreciate you coming on, and would love to spend more time with you. You know.
Yeah, next time I'll definitely make notes so I can remember on what I want to say.
Oh yeah. No, you did great.
Here, I'll give you a better deal. You can pick the book.
Yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
Or an album, if there's an album you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do really like music.
Yeah. If there's a particular music album that you think maybe your Uncle Phil might not have heard, we have something called Aaron's Audio Edibles. And basically what that comes down to is if Philip hasn't heard the album, he may have heard one or two songs, but not the album. And that qualifies it as an audio edible.
And almost every album qualifies.
Yeah, just about. And if you want it to be something I haven't heard, almost every single album ever made qualifies. Except for the Monkees, Nelson, and Jim Croce.
Yeah, I'll definitely, because I love music.
I've only heard some of that album. Otherwise.
All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and close it out here.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Been fun.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Bye, Kris. Stay away from your little brother.
I will.
We have social.
Twitter.
Yeah, pod.
Instagram.
Yeah, pod.
Facebook.
Yeah, pod. So let us know. Hit us back. Have a great week.